How you doing? And good evening. Tonight we have a special guest. We have State Treasurer Chip Flowers. But before we go to Chip, I'd like to make a couple announcements first, and then we'll go to our guest. Tonight we like to dedicate the show to two people tonight. To Miss Betty Robinson, one of the union guys, is his grandmother. She watches the show all the time. So I want to say, how you doing, Miss Betty? And the show is dedicated to you. Also, the show is also dedicated to the union, 1694-1. My name is Julius Cephas. I'm president of the union. And for the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about the port because we've been having some great meetings and we're trying to expand the port. We're trying to create more jobs. We have union and non-union. We've been dealing with Rick Ryan, the people outside the gate and inside the gate, and we're trying to expand and create a lot of new jobs because, again, jobs are the number one. Everybody's looking for a job, so we had some great meetings, and again, we want to continue to try to tap into the resources at the Port of Wilmington inside and out. It's not all going to be union, but they're going to be good paying jobs, and we're going to let you know who's for it and who's trying to stop it. So right now, I'd like to start and say hello to State Treasurer Chip Flowers.
Thank you for having me. I hope I don't let 1694 Miss Betty down. So I'm going to try to, since you dedicate the show to him, I hope I don't let him down.
Okay. Chip, the first thing, can you tell me where you grew up and give me a little bit of background on you and the viewing audience about, I hear, what makes you qualified? Give me a little background on your education and where you grew up.
Sure, thank you, and thank you again for having me, Julius. This show is so important to people out there, so I just want to put that out there. So thank you so much, and of course, when Norm had the show as well, I wanted to give him thanks as well. But a little bit of background about myself. Excuse me, I'm a military brat. A lot of people don't know this, but I was actually born in Hawaii. My father was stationed there, so I was born in Hawaii, and I moved to Hawaii from Hawaii, Dallas, Pittsburgh, Oklahoma. Went to high school in actually Italy, Vicenza, Italy, overseas, and I came back, and that's how I first got in contact with Delaware, was flying to and from Dover Air Force Base between Aviano Air Force Base in Italy to Dover. And so really Dover was the only place Delaware was the only state I really knew as home. And so after I graduated from college at the University of Pennsylvania, I went to law school, Georgetown, got my MBA and law degree at the same time, came back here, practiced law here in Delaware. And then I went up to Harvard, got my master's in public administration, and then I came back and started my own law firm, focused on mergers and acquisitions and corporate procurement. And then after that, I was able to run for office, and the people elected me. So I'm very blessed in that regard. And I tell people I had a fabulous background. I was able to work at the White House under President Clinton. Actually worked for Jesse Jackson for a time here. With my first internship, a lot of people don't know it. My very first internship, how I got into politics. I actually told the story once last week for the first time in years. Someone asked me, how did you get started in politics? When I was in Italy, I didn't know a lot of people. We only had one TV station. The military, they didn't play a lot of political stuff for obvious reasons because they didn't want people getting riled up. So all I knew is I heard this guy, Jesse Jackson. So my freshman year in college, I wanted to get into politics. I picked up the phone and called the Rainbow Push Coalition. And sure enough, they said, come on in. And literally, it was my first phone call for any type of employment in politics. And the worst worked out. And I tell people, despite the issues that Jesse may have had, I tell people all the time that the grassroots training that the Rainbow Push Coalition gives individuals is phenomenal. I mean, there's a whole network of people who have been affiliated. And so, despite some of the qualms whether you're pro Jesse or not, I tell people all the time, he did some amazing things, and he opened the door up for a lot of people. And so people don't know that when Bill Clinton got elected, that a lot of folks from Jesse Jackson's operation went to work for Bill Clinton, and they pulled people like myself up through the ranks and pulled them up. And so that's how a lot of us were able to get that White House experience early in our careers through that Rainbow Push Coalition network.
Now, you've really been taking the beating, but let me ask you a question. Did Jesse ever say, keep hope alive?
Yeah, all the time. Reverend, I am so blessed. Once a year I get to see Jesse and say, keep hope alive. And obviously, the things that happened with his son and him. Yeah. And, the message kind of got diluted there for a while. But hopefully people, I think history will be kind to him because people don't realize, as you know, 1984 and 1988, I mean, he, put the dream out there for people to, really set the door up for Barack Obama to really become the first African American president. So I think, media beats up on Jesse a lot, but I think that fundamentally that grassroots community-based organizing type campaign is really how so many African American elected officials got elected so early in our nation's history between the 80s and the 90s.
Okay. Now, on a more serious note, okay, explain to us what this with the state investment portfolio.
Sure.
Because a lot of us, you deal with a lot of money. A lot of money. Just try to explain that to the viewing audience.
Sure. I tell people it's very simple. We manage roughly the state's $2 billion, and because the economy has not been what it should be, we don't manage quite as much as that we have historically because of the fact that revenues are, I think, kind of flatlining and not growing, kind of to your point about we need more jobs here in Delaware. Well, but that being said, I manage $2 billion, about most of which every day, about $30 to $40 million comes within the state's doors. We try to keep about a flat balance of $30 million to pay the state's bills. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of people get confused is that they think that the money, the $2 billion, we sit there every day, we just draw down and pay bills. That's not the way it works. What we really do is the money that comes in from taxes and various things come in every single day, and the money that comes in, we pay it back out. So very rarely do we have to dip into our portfolio significantly. And so what we do with the state portfolio, it's invested, and about 50% is invested long-term and 50% is invested short-term. And so that's really where I spend a bulk of my operations, is making sure how do we best manage that money to keep, so we can make money, make interest returns, and make sure that we can ensure that people don't have to pay as high as taxes, because the more money we make off that $2 billion, the more that we can make sure that people's taxes can stay down.
Okay, I mean, again, you've been taking a lot of criticism. Did you make any money for the state?
Yes, over the past 38 months, and again, prior to February this year, it was pretty set that the treasurer managed the state's money with some guidance from this investment board that's not elected. It's pretty much full of the governor's appointees. We made about over $45 million during my 38 months of pretty much me controlling it. We had positive returns 31 out of 38 months. And so we despite the Great Recession, we were doing great things. And it was like simple things, like making sure that we were coming in every day, moving the money around, making sure it's being properly allocated. There was a philosophy that people said, when I first came into office, Julius, people said, the Treasury manages itself. All you need to do is just show up. You don't even really need to be there half the time. It was crazy. But at the same time, we weren't doing the things that we needed to do to prepare ourselves, like Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, other states that were really, Massachusetts particularly, that really were saying, listen, you got to manage money. Money doesn't manage itself. It needs to be managed. And so, we are really trying to shake things up. And as a result, we made some money. And I know some people were disappointed at that, but they got to get over it.
Okay, people's pension, you made, now I'm not, okay, what I was told that you made what, 40, y'all made $44 million in the pension fund or something?
No, that's a great point. Let me explain. The state treasurer during the administration of Governor Carper, prior to that, the state treasurer also managed the pension for the state of Delaware.
Okay.
Once Governor Carper came into office, he took that away from the treasurer's office for whatever reasons. That's not good or bad. They moved it, and now that's managed by the governor's administration. So actually, Governor Markell and his team managed the pension money. Okay. And so what the treasurer, we always say, we manage most of the state's money except the pension funds. That's managed separately by the pension board that is governed by the governor's team. So pretty much we have all the non-pension related assets. So that's why I was laughing when, when people were trying to go out there and scare people. Said Chip Flowers is out there trying to play with your pension money. I don't own a penny of people's pension money. The money that we have is basically from corporate franchise taxes, income taxes, all the things that you can think of. You pay fees and services, all that kind of state revenue, but pension money is separate, and people's deferred compensation for state employees, as you know, that's separate. So that actually falls under my office, the deferred compensation system, but not the pension.
Okay. Now, explain to the viewing audience, what is Delaware's Cash Management Board? And explain that to us, because again, I know you were saying there's conflict of interest.
Right.
I mean, just explain that to.
Sure.
In a way where we could understand it. Because I can't even fill out my own. I got my own checking account.
Historically, back decades ago, many states had these kind of boards that were set up to help the treasurer manage money. And there's nothing wrong with that model, saying that you have a board, the treasurer brings suggestions to the boards, but ultimately the treasurer makes a decision and takes an advisory board. Delaware had a very unique model. Delaware set up this board that basically tells pretty much the treasurer what to do. And it's a model, it works fine when the board is experienced, but unfortunately, many members of the board don't have a financial background, don't have a background in fixed income investment, don't require independent investment advisor. They're not required to disclose their finances except when they get appointed, but they could say most of them have been there since 1981, so they get reappointed every 4 or 5 years, and so they may have back-end relationships with banks and things of that nature. And then certainly, of course, term limits. I mean, as you can imagine, that people serving since 1981, maybe they're not as knowledgeable about current market practices as someone who, as you know, sitting in J.P. Morgan Chase or Barclays or someplace else that may say, hey, the market's changed. So people who had expertise in 1981, it's highly unlikely that they're going to have the same level of expertise in 2014. So that's where the source of the conflict has been. We said, listen, we don't mind working with a board, but we're saying if you're going to have this board, one, there needs to be rules around the board. Just like with elected officials, you've got to disclose your finances. That just makes good common sense to make sure that you are voting in the best interest of the people of the state. Second, we believe that the board should be advisory, but if you're not going to make it advisory, then certainly you should have the board full of experts. And if you don't have experts on the board, why are the non-experts telling the experts at the Treasury what to do with the money? Because ultimately, the board could say, go put all the state's money in Dairy Queen, and we could lose all the state's money. So there are some very serious challenges there. And so, as you know, because I took on the establishment, and of course, one of the main problems I have with the board is that many of the board members give donations to the governor or to members of the legislature, and then magically, whenever I have a conflict with them, a bill comes up saying, well, we're going to strip Chip of some powers. So, that's just not the way that, I know no other state that operates like that.
Is this the first time that you've known that they try to strip somebody elected official of power?
Yes, it's funny. Yes, it is the first time that we have seen this. Fortunately, I'm the Democratic, because of work I've done. God has blessed me. I'm the national Democratic chair of all the state treasurers nationally. And so my colleagues called me up and joked with me and said, Chip, what is going on in Delaware? I mean, how are people allowing this to stand, that they could actually pass a bill saying that these people who, when you look at their backgrounds, are actually trying to make, and they said, well, the money's, they've been there for 30 years, the money's still there. That's not how you judge performance. Right. And so, but it's the first time that we know about that. And so, but like I said, just pray about it and just keep moving on.
Yeah, but what I have concerns about is that you were elected by the people. And if anybody should make the decision, it should be the people.
That is something I just fundamentally believe in, and it's something that myself, the governor and the legislature, just members of the leadership of the legislature disagree with. I believe that it's not about making sure that I don't want the power to control the money. I'm not one person, but I believe there has to be a level of accountability, because when individuals on this board make a bad decision, the people, there's no check and balance to that system. The people can't vote them off. They can't get their appointments don't go away. There's no process where the treasurer can appeal and say, well, wait a minute, they're asking me to do some things that I may find inappropriate. So, this week, Senator Nicole Poore, they're supposed to be making some recommendations to change the Cash Management Policy Board. Gerald Brady is also the co-chair of that committee, and we'll see on May 8th. That's the big day. May 8th, this Thursday. There's a big hearing at noon, and we're going to see if people were really serious when they said, Treasurer, we're going to listen to your changes and recommendations, or we're going to see if it was another back-end deal has been cut. But either way, we're going to expose these deals. We're going to keep talking about them. We're going to say, listen, this is wrong. They know it, and this Delaware needs to clean up its house.
Now, last week, I had the Republicans on and I was a lone Democrat defending the Democrats. I took a pretty good beating too. I'm not ashamed to admit it, but it seemed like the Democrats is the one who came after you.
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to either watch myself here, because as you know, the election's coming up. I don't care. I just say what I believe. Whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, Tea Party, Coffee Party, I don't care. When you're dealing with people's money, you got to be on the up and up. You got to be correct. Right. And I think what I'm upset about is the fact that members of our own party have seen the very principles that we argue about when the Republicans are in office, that we say, okay, when we get in office, we're going to stand for a different set of principles. And now that we're in office running everything, well, we're doing the same thing. Well, I'm going to call you out just like I would call them out when they're in office. So the way I look at it is that the Democrats in the community, most people feel like this board, I mean, we took an internal poll. I think it was over 70% of the people that we found didn't believe this board should be abolished. And you don't get 70% of people to agree on anything in this day and age. So this was cross Republicans, Democrats, Tea Party, everybody. People just don't like this model. So I think the leadership of the party is out of step, and they need to get back in step. So Speaker Schwarzkopf and others, they can threaten me all they want, but at the end of the day, as Dr. King and others would say, that the arc progress bends towards justice. And so you can do what you want, but we got to change the system.
Now, who came to your support in the legislature?
I have to, give a lot of credit to, Senator Margaret Rose Henry, Senator Marshall. I have to give also credit to certainly John Kowalko in Newark. I mean, there were a lot of people who came in and said, this is wrong, and we're going to try to make this make a difference. And so there were some very influential people who really worked behind the scenes to try to make it happen. But again, when you're getting that kind of pressure, and again, as you know, last fall, there was a lot of negative press on just absolute craziness that I had nothing to do with, but that's a different story, to try to weaken me just so I couldn't get this. But I tell people say, well, why were you in the paper every day? Well, when you are trying to mess with $2 billion of money, people are going to come after you.
Right.
And they're going to continue to come after me. They're going to get the barking dogs to check my underwear at night. They're going to do anything they can because you're messing with a lot of money. And that's just the way that life is.
Now, I know they was trying to talk about $400, $800, but what most people don't know, the viewing audience don't know, is that you were one of the few politicians that donated your whole salary, which is over $100,000, to charity. But yet they came after you about $400, but nobody ever talked about your $100,000 plus you donated to charity for the whole year. Can you talk about that?
Thank you so much. I think a lot of it was they wanted to give people the impression that I was some guy desperate in office, and I don't know why they did that, because it just made people look at my finances. But yes, I gave up my first year's salary because I really believe in public service. And I, as many people know, I pretty much self-funded my own first campaign, over $200,000, $300,000, and then I gave up my first year's office. So I'm committed to public service. And so, it was very insulting for them to think that I would ever try to nickel and dime. It was just an awful situation. And then recently I heard that there were some people out there trying to investigate the money that I gave up my first year's salary and try to find something wrong with that. And I said, that's just sick. We have gotten to a sick point in politics where I want to give my money to charity, try to do something nice, and let's go investigate that and try to prove to people that Chip Flower should have kept his money. It reminds me of an article recently when they were saying, well, Chip Flowers has spent so much money, he hasn't gone out and raised money from people. Well, because I want to spend my own money and not take money from people who need their money, that's a bad thing. So, I'm going to keep it. I just laugh. I think that we need to change this culture in this state, and if I'm the person that try to break it, I'm going to try to break it.
Do you think, do you and the governor, do y'all ever sit down and have coffee, lunch, and try to work things out?
We did. We made an effort, and
How many times?
I think we met once since I've been in office, which is.
And how long you been in office?
I've been in office over 3 years now, so we met once.
Hold up for a second. My math is not that good, but you've been in office for 3 years, and you met once the state elected treasurer.
Yes. So we are not.
Y'all don't walk past the hall. Down Legislation Hall. Y'all don't.
We say hi, and that's about it. I think at this point in the relationship, to be frank with you, I think as I tell people, I'm not worried about his business because he's got a job to do. It seems like some of his people worry about my business, but that's, I'll let God take care of that. But I just said, it is sad. And I think, I'm looking forward to 2016. And God knows I pray that I can get back in office, because I think in 2016, we're going to probably have a governor, whoever it is, that's not going to be the former treasurer, that's not going to be, I think, as passionate about worrying about what's going on in the Treasury. And I think that we're looking forward for resetting a new relationship. So we're going to announce a lot of initiatives over the course of the next few months that's really going to be focused on 2016 and how we can make a difference after the current administration is no longer in office.
Tell us about some of your accomplishments that you're most proud about for the three years, I guess, you've been in office.
In addition to that, I don't like to brag, but I do like to say a couple things that we've done I hope people take note of. Is that, like I said, we invested the money during difficult times, and what a lot of people don't know, the biggest crisis that we ever had in this state was actually twofold. It's funny, not a single article was ever printed about it, and I think people see why when I say it. About 90 days when I came into office, the state had hundreds of millions of dollars unsecured in a failing bank. And when I walked in the door, that issue was presented to me, and people don't understand the pressure that I received. And a lot of the reasons why I think that, to this day, that myself and the administration clashed, because people were trying to say, well, you know what, Treasurer, you need to keep that money in that bank, and we need to change the rules so you can keep it in the bank. Well, I tell people, well, we got about 80 other banks in the state that are fine. Why are we trying to make the rules different? So, well, we need to change it just so it can apply to this one bank, and we all know what that's about. But I don't want to say the name. We all know what that's about.
Okay.
But they want to keep it in their favorite bank. And I said, well, that's not fair. We got Wisfis, we got TD, we got all these other banks.
Do you want to tell us that bank?
I'm not going to tell you that. I mean,
Okay,
I'm sure folks could know about it. They mess around and they'll have a real article in the paper about me tomorrow.
Okay.
But that's what it's about. And so the money was unsecured. So my position was always, we're not going to change the rule to favor one bank.
Right.
We're going to make all the banks now that really the banks that you've been excluding from holding money, we're going to make them eligible to hold state deposits. And that's where that source of that contention came. I mean, ultimately, the bank was bought out, and now is no longer, people may know the bank by another name now. But that being said, that's kind of the source. And that was the biggest crisis that we had. And it led to the question, well, why does the state have hundreds of millions of dollars in a bank that's unsecured? I mean, when you buy a car, they take collateral in the car. We were like the only state, one of one or two states in the union that didn't require collateral on millions of dollars of deposits.
Why do you think that? What's your opinion on that?
Well, as I was told when I asked, well, they said that, well, if we ask the banks for collateral, the banks may not like that. Listen, Julius, I wanted to get up and leave the meeting. I said, you mean to tell me that you're going to put taxpayer money at risk because the bank may not like it? Again, I just think that what has happened is that, people, as you know, in Delaware, everybody's chummy, a third cousin, and you can't operate a business like that. You got to say, listen, the best interest of taxpayers is to make sure our money's protected. And so what I did, one of the greatest accomplishments I think that people don't even know about, in addition to making millions, that we protected our state funds. Every nickel of state, every penny of state money is now collateralized, is protected. So if a bank falls, we have a safety net, and that's really probably the most important, as I would tell people, that was a crisis that we had to deal with at the Treasury. But again, no ink has ever been written on that crisis, because people are going to have to ask the next question, says, well, why was it set up that way, number one, and why did you ask the Treasurer of the state of Delaware to try to modify rules to save to keep money in that bank? I believe the White House acknowledged your department. Can you talk about that? Sure, yeah. The Obama administration has been fabulous. We have a Delaware Economic Index that we put out, as well as some other financial education tools, like the Prosperity Portal that my staff does, that really tries to help people make good financial decisions, something I'm very passionate about, making sure that families and businesses make decisions before they go bad, because as you know, in 2008, too many families didn't have that information. So the White House a couple years ago acknowledged us as one of the best treasuries for financial education, and specifically acknowledged this tool that I created. And the funny part is this Delaware Economic Index, I got so much flack when I tried to create it when I came into office. They say, Chip, why do you want to tell people how the Delaware economy is doing? You're just trying to make our state look bad. I said, no, you can't lie to people. The economy is doing what it's doing.
Wait a minute. Okay, you was acknowledged by the White House.
Yes.
And I didn't read about it in the paper.
No. Like I said, they sell their news, the way they want. But we were acknowledged by the White House, and so we were very fortunate for that.
Have you ever met President Barack Obama?
Yes, a few times. He is a very nice individual. The White House is, I think they do a great job of supporting, particularly minority elected officials, and particularly statewide. There's not many minority statewide elected office holders, and so I get fortunate to go to the White House quite a bit, and they have been very nice. I've met the president on a few occasions, as well as Valerie Jarrett. And when I go to there, I always tell people that this is an honor and privilege, but what can we do to keep the diversity movement going and make sure that more individuals go? And so from time to time, when I get tickets or whatever, I always tell people, you go. You go to White House and you get the experience.
Now in this question here, okay, you took a lot of bad press.
Yes.
Okay, a lot of bad press, and I probably shouldn't answer, but I have to ask. Do you think you took the bad press because you were single? I got you.
Because I don't know. I think I took the bad press because I think that there were those out there who viewed me as a threat, who said that this young man, he's doing things, he's not following the rules, And we were hoping that his projects would fail. They didn't. And he's single, and there was some dirty play. And those individuals who played dirty, they know what they did. And they took a young woman's medical condition and the fact that she was doing something awful with her state credit card and tried to pin it on me. Even though every document we have shows that they knew about it from the first charge she made. And in fact, what people don't know, and they think I don't know what they know, but the young lady, it looks like she had done it before in another department or agency, and that never hit the newspaper. But we're gonna let that go until they try to raise it up by election day. But nevertheless, this young lady, they tried to use her medical condition and kept it quiet and tried to pin it on me and said, look, Chip Flowers, he was involved in, and it was just insane. And it changed me, Julius. I got to admit, it changed. There was a period in my life where I said, why do this? I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of my own money, had given up my first year's salary, and here it is that when I went back and saw the emails where the high-level officials in different departments and the governor's team who knew what was going on and didn't share that with me, and were so busy trying to set me up and try to put the pin on me, that I tell you, I thought about walking away. And many people in the community, I thought about saying, why swim upstream? But I prayed about it and I said, listen, it's because of people who fight and they try to break them down that people go away and they get away with what they're doing. So I'm going to stay in there and I'm going to fight and I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to expose them and I'm going to keep doing the right thing, because I think ultimately they need somebody who's not tied down, who says, they always keep people in check. Well, we'll help you raise money. We'll help you that money, but I don't want your money. I don't want your money. I want to do it the right way. And so I think that that's what I'm about. And if it works out, fine. If it doesn't, God knows I've served and done what I needed to do. But I think that me being single certainly played into the narrative, and the fact that she was not African American and we traveled together, that played into the narrative. And it was really just disgusting. It was disgusting. And as you know, when you go through something like that, you find out your real friends, and I appreciate those, including yourself and others who stood with me during those tough times. And we got to the end of the tunnel, and it showed that the only folks who knew are the folks that they're not even investigating. You're so busy looking at me, but everybody else knew. So we'll see how this is going to play out by election day.
Now, okay, you did some things for some schools. You started some programs or something. Talk about that, how you try to change, educate the children. Some programs.
We did a fun initiative. Kelly Callahan in my office, whose father works with the labor over at United Way. We did she had a great idea to partner with the NFL and Visa to do financial football, which was a way that we can get young kids engaged. Because what was happening was, we have a bank at school program, and some of your children may participate in it, but we found a lot of kids don't have money. Bank and school program is good, but some kids don't have $3 or $4 to put into a bank and let it sit there. Some people don't have money to get extra money, so you can't teach those children those kind of financial skills. So what we did was we partnered with the NFL and the Visa, and we they created a financial football game, kind of like the Madden NFL game on Xbox and PlayStation, and kids can use that now as a way of learning and get them engaged. And we brought in an NFL player, Brandon Stokely from the Ravens, and it was a wonderful time.
What I would like to see, when I was growing up, we had summer youth jobs, and again, a lot. That might be, you should look into trying to teach these kids how to get a checking account, open up a savings account. And this is the best time, because the things you learn as a youth, you stay with you the rest of your life. You know what I mean? But I'm going to start, if you can put the number up there, I want to start taking some phone calls.
But let me say, Jules, because I think you bring up a great point and what we need to be doing. I am a strong proponent, and actually a Republican legislator put this through last term. It didn't get far because some people opposed it. But I really believe that every child in Delaware should have financial education as a requirement before they graduate high school. And I don't understand. We teach them, everything else, but I think that's very important.
Go ahead. You on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Treasurer Flowers, Julius, Pastor D again.
How you doing, Pastor?
Twice in one day, Julius. Hey, listen, Treasurer, first of all, I agree with the spirit of Julius's question. Excuse me, that's my son. Let me move to another room. I agree with the spirit of Julius's question in terms of the coverage. However, I want to suggest something and have you respond. I want to suggest that the coverage you have received is not necessarily bad coverage, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and the coverage you have received has actually exposed a good old boy system. It's shown you to be an independent thinker, and I believe it has shown you to be exactly what you said you would be in your campaign. The question I would like you to answer is predicated upon the fact that your campaign, as you know, I played a significant role, I believe, along with a lot of grassroots people.
You did.
And you were elected not by the old boys, but you were elected by the grassroots people with whom you were in the schools. We were all over the place, and those people supported you and beat the machine. Do you see a need to sort of return to the blueprint in terms of this campaign, and even more so, given what I've said? I'll hang up and answer.
Right. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, Pastor D. And Pastor D and his folks were wonderful, as well as so many others. I mean, Pastor D's right. We have to do, I want other folks to use my model of using a grassroots-based system to get elected, because that's the only way you can beat a machine. And that's the only way you can beat a machine that has a significant amount of money and power. And Pastor D's right, that you have to basically go out in the community, knock on doors, and do it the old school way. And that's what I do. I tell people all the time, we knock on doors, and we go out there and try to get the community engaged and get that message to the people.
Hello, you on the air?
Hey, how's it going there, Julius? It's good to see you on there, man. Hopefully they'll keep you on there for a long time. This is Lynn Church.
Oh, Lynn, how you doing? I love you to death, man. I love your knowledge. Go ahead.
Yeah, and what I like to do is I definitely want to say this to Chip Flowers. Ricky Williams, 1183, you know we were with you then when
Yes,
you
you
came
were.
up and you were at a grassroots campaign, and we supported you then, and we support you now. What's most important is that you let the public realize that Wilmington Trust, I'll say it, maybe you can, but the fact is that they are no longer in a position in the state of Delaware. They're basically a defunct organization. We know that M&T Bank took them over. Basically, it may be a front for whomever knows, but you know downstate, you know that Wilmington Trust is a powerful organization. A lot of those guys that were on that board are the ones that are trying to fight you in every way they can. You know as well as I know, along with everyone else, that if you look at the state of Delaware and you really get serious about it, you can see that most of the individuals that are in elective office, and you look at that outside of the governor, which has Jim Seals Jr. on his staff, look at the rest of them from the Attorney General all the way through and find out how many minority individuals are there that are on their staffs. And I'll say this much, we had a meeting at Del Tech on Saturday. It was CPTU, and what we had in that, we had the state transportation individual, and I hit him with a serious question. I said, outside of the minorities, this is what we try to say, minorities. I said, no, what about African-American individuals that are contractors that are trying to get state-appointed jobs as contractors? What he basically said to me was, well, we hire other individuals and then they subcontract that out. My question to him was, we don't need people to subcontract us out. What we need are the individuals that are in a position, and then you guys decide to give them the contracts and let them subcontract those contracts out.
That's it.
And that's how simple it is. And Julius will understand, you've been down to Port. Hell, I was down there a long time ago, and I'll make it very simple. I worked over there at Ryder with Volkswagen. We know how difficult it was, and you guys know how difficult it was when Volkswagen left.
That's
Serious business, and
Yeah.
I'll leave it on that because I know it's quite a few other people that'll call you. But let's get serious with this and make sure that we understand that the port is a viable place. But what's most important is that you, as a good guy, and you remember me, I'm the guy with the braids and the beard. We did our best to make sure that you got in office, and I like to think about that, man. I tell you. I appreciate it, and keep the fight up.
Thank you
All right,
so much.
thank you,
Hopefully,
Church.
run for governor. Just run for
Thank you,
governor
Church.
for
All
Echo.
right,
Yeah,
thank you. All right.
He makes a great point. I
Yeah.
think the people in the community know. One of the things I have fought to do as treasurer is make sure that we have a great diversity initiative, and that's really
Hello, you on the air?
Julius, I got to call back and make this point for young African Americans who may be watching right now, and tell parents to go get their school students. And something just struck me with you and the treasurer being on there together. What we have is two African American men who independently stood up against the machine, where millions of dollars. Julius, had you not done what you did with the millions of dollars Wilmington with the laws with the poor, you know as well as I do, then Wilmington would have been in trouble. Had the treasurer not done the exact same thing, and in fact, it was the same machine that you both stood up against, but what I noticed is both of you did it with dignity, you did it with style, and you did it with what the Italians might call kahunas. We might call it something else in the hood. But you did it with a backbone, and I think it's important that our children see what we have on the screen here tonight, man. And I salute you both, but I just think that point has to be made, that individuals have to stand up, and when you stand up, you can win.
All right, thank you, Pastor D. I want to say something. I was watching. They did a thing on Dick Gregory, and I knew Dick Gregory was deep, but I didn't know he was that deep. And Dick Gregory, at the end, I mean, this biography was awesome, but at the end, and I'm still his statement. What he said was, he said, "I'm like a turtle." I'm like, what? He said, "I'm hard on the outside, I'm soft in the inside, but I'm willing to stick my neck out."
Wow,
I was like, whoa.
That's deep.
That was deep, you know. So I'm gonna take some more calls. Okay. You on the air? Go ahead. Hello, you on the air?
Hello. I'm a high school public math teacher.
Yes.
In the state of Delaware, and I was listening to you talk about finances and everything, and I work for the Red Clay School District, and currently we are not allowed to label any of our math courses as a financial math course. So students who are required to take 4 years of math have the options of calculus or statistics in their fourth year. And the students need to be educated about how to deal with their money, and currently we can't really offer those options. So I was just wondering if maybe, you would talk to some of the school districts sometimes and maybe have some sway with them on what students need to be learning in their high school years. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is a great comment.
That's great.
I mean, that's so important. We teach our kids calculus, algebra, trigonometry, but they can't go balance a checkbook. That makes no sense. And so I'm upset that members of our own party opposed that legislation, because I think it would have been perfect to require financial education. So I need to thank you I need to get back on that soapbox. There's a lot of fights. You can't fight them all, but that's one that I think is worth to make sure that people know how to have financial education. And that should not be based on just those who are living in X or Y school district. That should be across the state, everybody.
Hello, you on the air?
Yeah, I tried a question for Chip Flowers when he says that when you invest money in the banks, that they have to give a collateral. What do you mean by a collateral? And I'll hang up and listen to the answer.
That's a great question, and that's a wonderful question. A lot of people don't understand. What happens is when you deposit money, sometimes when you get a loan from a bank, they take security, right? They'll say, okay, well, if you want to borrow money from our bank for a car, they basically say, well, we're going to hold the title to the car until you pay off the loan. That car becomes collateral, and so that's what we're talking about. So the reverse happens when you make a deposit. When you deposit millions of dollars into a bank, you as a depositor can say, well, wait a minute, I'm giving you millions of dollars. You need to make sure that that's guaranteed, so if your bank goes under, we're backed up behind some assets that the bank have, whether it's stock certificates or whatever. In our case, we do it by government securities owned by the bank. So what means that, when you go in and basically said, because the federal government only guarantees $250,000 of any checking account. And most of us, I know I don't have much more than that much. So, but if you deposit hundreds of millions of dollars, you got to make sure that you have the rest of the money outside of $250,000 backed up with collateral.
Go ahead, you on the air.
Hi, I wanted to ask State Treasurer Chip Flowers. I know under your tenure, the state of Delaware has had a AAA bond rating, and I just wanted to understand what that means as far as the health of the money that the state has. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
No, that's wonderful. The AAA bond, that's a great question, great question. The AAA bond rating, a lot of people have a responsibility for that, myself, and actually I give the legislature and the governor, actually I give credit for making sure that is maintained. And what the AAA bond rating means is it measures basically the ability of the state to make sure that we can repay our debt. And so AAA kind of, there's various factors that go in, but primarily the biggest factor into making sure a state has a high bond rating is that you certainly haven't defaulted on the other debt that you took out. But secondly, it's how your operating expenditures are. And so in the state of Delaware, what we do is we only spend 98% of the money that we take in. So we leave a 2% buffer, and that's important because we have a surplus every year of at least 2% ideally, and that we manage that surplus. So that all goes into AAA bond rating, which reduces the state's borrowing costs.
Okay, go ahead, you're on the air.
Hey, Chip. Julie, this is Nancy Willie.
Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Nancy, how are you?
You're gonna be coming on soon, Nancy.
Yeah, I'll be on. I was just going to say that I'll be trying to get down on May 8th.
Good.
See what the Joint Sunset Committee has to say about your recommendations. And it will be a test of whether or not they're going to come through on something that they promised. They all promised that they'd take a look at it through Joint Sunset, and so we'll see. And then on another subject on the primary, I heard you've been doing real well in the Democratic Committee forums, and I know there's one in my neck of the woods tomorrow night, I believe.
Yes.
So I'm going to be a little bit late. I got another meeting, but I'm going to try and hold off till the end of the meeting, and I'll be able to root for you down there. Okay?
Well, thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you. I enjoyed talking.
Thank
to
you,
voters.
Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. Nancy's great. Wonderful
yes,
job
yes.
blogging. Another person that exposes some issues. So Nancy does not get enough credit for exposing some stuff.
Now,
that she does.
let me, about the AAA. Is it like my FICO scores, like when I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to buy something, if my credit scores are not good, I have to have a higher rate? Is it similar to that?
That's exactly a great analogy. It's very similar to a score. It's like the state. It's equivalent to the state's FICO score. That's a great analogy. And so basically, the higher your rate, the lower interest. The higher your rating, the lower your interest rate. And of course, the lower your rating, the higher you pay. So the state, by having a AAA bond rating, helps us get some very attractive rates when we borrow money for debt, transportation, things of that nature. Pay school. Really, most of it is into school bonds. Obviously, the state issues those on behalf of the school district. So a lot of that really is impacted by that AAA bond rating.
Also, I want to say, I get a lot of credit, not just me, my team, when we was named Man of the Year and all that, the work we did at the port.
Yes.
And again, but what people don't realize, without Senate Bill 3 from Senator Marshall,
Right.
we couldn't have been successful. Because that means that the ports board would have voted on it, and we already know which way that was going. So again, Senator Marshall deserves a lot of credit for that.
And Julius, to Pastor D's point he mentioned earlier, you deserve a lot of credit. I'm not just blowing smoke because I'm on your show, as you know. But I tell people that was a powerful. You were at one point. They had the daggers going after you. They really did. And what they do to people is they isolate individuals like yourself. Anybody that stands up to change is that person is going to cost you a job, or that person is the reason why you can't get a raise. And they go out and tell all these falsehoods, and they have a back door and getting them into some media sources. And the next thing you know, you're sitting trying to do the right thing, but you're fighting all these different factions. And so, to Pastor's point, when you're going up against that kind of power and that kind of machine, it's very demoralizing. And I know, many nights, I just stayed in bed. It's just demoralizing. But you get up and you have to keep fighting. And so when you get on the other side, I tell you, now people look at us and realize, man, this one guy stood up to all this and had some great support. But if he didn't stand up, where would that port be?
Yeah, but we had a good team. My Vice President, Paul Cutler, Jim Welch, Clarence Bird. The executive board, we had Emmett, Foster, Sally. We had a great team.
Great core.
And again, right now, I want everybody to realize that we're meeting with the private companies outside the gate, and we've talked to Nicole, who's on the Sunset Committee, and they're looking to invest and trying to create more jobs.
Right, that's right.
Good paying jobs, and And that's why I'm going to be talking about this, because every day I go somewhere, somebody's looking for a job.
Right.
Right now, the refinery is hiring, so people might want to call down in the refinery. You have to have a TWIC card, and they're starting off with, I think, 28.96 without experience. But you need a driver's license and you need a TWIC card. And also, I would like to set up. I would like later on Pastor D to give me a call, because we had a guy in the union who was on probation, and this guy was working overtime, and he was paying his fine down to $200. He was paying over $200 a week. They violated him, but thank God for the judge. I mean, the man is working. He's working overtime. They said he shouldn't be working overtime, but the judge, and this is not a racial thing, because this guy was white. So this happens to both. This happens to a little bit of everybody.
Right.
But I would like to do something about the prisons, about people being violated for parole. And this guy, he was working around the clock.
Right.
Pay stubs, he's paying off the fine, but the judge, thank God for the judge, stood up and said no.
Good. That's
And again, I mean, he's paying his debt to society. He's taking care of everything, and they violated you. And so I would like to sit down with Pastor D and a couple other people to come on who have a lot more knowledge than me, and even people who are on the other side. So I wanted to be fair.
Yeah, definitely.
But
and I think it would be great in this show, and I'm not, but I think because of the situation with Bo and he's no longer running for re-election, I think this is a really great opportunity for our community to really get focused on the issues that impact the office of the Attorney General. I mean, people don't know, this is a very important office that impacts all aspects of people's lives. Mm-hmm. We all know somebody who had to go through the system and, or either accused or falsely accused or rightly accused, but either wherever you fall on it. And I think that there needs to be some changes in this office. That's not to slight the Attorney General. I think he's done a great job. But I think that this is a chance, whenever you have a new election, the potential of a new Attorney General, we need to scrutinize every single candidate on that ballot. I mean, they need to come on this show. They need to say their position, say what they're going to do. I'm always telling them that I hope that the AG's model goes from the let's make a deal hour, him and people up with a whole bunch of charges and say, well, we got a deal for you, to basically say, if you're innocent, you're innocent. And we're not going to make a deal with you. We're going to be out there supporting you. But if you're guilty, you're guilty. And I think that, we got to start talking about justice issues. So it'd be nice to even have Bo Biden on to get his thoughts on that as well. So I just think that's a great opportunity. I know Matt Den's in that race and some others may be coming in. But I think people should come on this show and talk about what those issues are, because, we see them at the Board of Pardons.
Okay, you're on the air.
Yeah, great show, Julius, and to our state treasurer, Chip Flowers. They're doing a wonderful job, and I think you made a good point just a minute ago about the Attorney General's office.
Right.
We've been victimized by illegalities that are not necessarily really legalities, but are personal vendettas. And you're a perfect example of how the Democratic Party, at least the leadership of the party, tried to derail you because you didn't want to go along with certain personal things they wanted to do with that office down there and the state treasurer. And I mean, a lot of us, whether we originally was on your team or not, we got on your team. After the election was over, I think you're doing a wonderful job, and a lot of us who, and I'm a Republican, and I'm going to stand up with you. I don't like how they treated you and how things have been done, and I think that it's important that we look at that Attorney General office. Now, you gave Bo Biden a pass. I'm not so sure that he should get a pass on how things were handled, especially when it comes to the office that you hold in some other very complicated matters that's going on in the state of Delaware. And we can look at that ME's office and some other situations and see that there have been some problems at the AG's office. Now, I want to ask you a question.
Cal, we got 3 minutes, so go ahead and hit the question for me, Cal.
I'm a board member at the WHA, and I was wondering, is there any way that the Treasurer's office could help us in getting any resources to help develop some of these housing so that we can assist some of our people who are in our state who don't have the resources to find housing. And I'm just wondering if there's any way we can partner with the treasurer's office to do some things.
Sure, give me a call. Give me a call because I know we're on the show.
Okay.
We'll call the treasurer's office tomorrow, Cal, and I will certainly we'll put you in the right direction.
Hey, Cal.
Yes, sir.
My jaw's still swollen from last week, but we'll talk later. All right. Okay. Let me see. Wait a minute. Again, we got 3 minutes. I'm gonna take one more call, but Chip, I would like you to talk to the viewing audience and tell them why that you feel that you deserve to be reelected.
Thank you. Well, you know, I hope that people see that I'm standing up for a brighter future, and I'm standing up for the people. And that's what I hope to do. You know, our work is not done. We know we've made some millions of dollars for the state, the $45 million. We've had positive returns. But as you see, we had some more issues. We got some more. We still have a fight that still isn't complete. And I don't want to leave office before the fight's done. We need to make these historical reforms to our state finances, and I'm going to stay in it. We had some wonderful ideas. I was up there meeting with some very important people in New York on an initiative that we're going to announce soon. But I think there's more that we can be doing at the treasurer's office that impact people and that will make a difference and make sure that we are moving the state in the right direction. So we need to be focused on innovative ideas, and we're going to continue to promote them. And I'm going to be I'm not a shrinking violet. And I've decided that, you know what, I'm not going to go along to get along. I'm going to follow your lead and the lead of those who came before me that made this door open for me. That we're going to fight those fights and make sure that we keep this focus on diversity, focus on financial education, focus on making millions for the state and getting people back to work.
Okay. And again, I would also say this election that people should come on and show their position. Again,
Definitely.
We must hold people accountable. We have some great people out there who are doing great things, but we must hold people accountable. And a lot of times after they get elected, we just go away and wait for them to come back again. But you're going to be hearing a lot more about the Port of Wilmington, about the growth of the Port of Wilmington. And again, you're going to be hearing a lot more about Chip Flowers, Senator Marshall, who I think is doing great things. And again, we have one minute. So the 18th, I had a show the 18th, and we would have the Cure of Violence with Sean Allen and the people he's working with to try to curb this violence and try to, I think it's with the Christiana Care, to try to get a hold on it. But again, everybody's got to come together, and we must organize, and we must hold people accountable. I think we can get a lot of great things done if we hold people accountable, and we would do better. And again, I'd like to see everybody on the 18th. I might be back next week, but definitely on the 18th. And to everybody, good night. And we'll see you on the 18th.